So here we are, committed and on the road to mastery in the areas of health, wealth, and relationships. So, where in the hell do we start? Those are three very big areas. And, a person could spend or get lost and just completely flustered with the idea of having to figure out where to start with all that. So I'm endeavoring to master three very broad topics in my life. So what do I start first with and why? I figure I heard this quote the other day while I was working out. I listen to some motivational music every once in a while. And roughly quoted, it was, if you struggle to get to work each day, you're probably focused on the obligation and not the opportunity. And that struck me in a big way because that's been my entire life. Just focused on, I always feel like when I'm trying to do something that I thought I wanted to do, it feels like this chore. It feels like I'm every day going, I got to do this again and again and again. And it just feels like it's never ending. And then of course that always leads to quitting, right? And that's not a place anyone ever wants to be, is in that place of quitting, because, you just never get anything done. And you end up feeling like the way I have, like a loser, like you haven't accomplished anything. You haven't mastered anything in your life. In fact, you haven't even gotten, relatively good at anything in your life. I mean, few areas, yes, but nothing extreme, right? So how do you get to that mastery point? And I think it comes down to, in order to master something, you have to love the process or topic inherently. Mastery takes obsession. Without obsession, you'll quit long before you ever reach that level of mastery. Or at the very least, it has to be important enough to you that you feel like obsession, or you're willing to obsess over it, or feel passionate about it. So yeah, what's important to me right now? Well, to me, number one focus has to be health right now. I want to start here because if I'm dead, nothing else matters. I could have the money and all that, but I can't do anything with it. Yes, my family will be able to and all that, but I want to be here for my family too. I want those relationships. And so if I let my health continue deteriorating, what's the point? You could have everything else in the world, but you're going to be miserable if you're sick and bedridden or even dying type of thing, right? So yeah, I don't want to be there. I also need the health, energy, and vitality it will take in order to pursue those other areas of my life. Those, the wealth and the relationships. Those take real work, real dedication over long periods of time. And if I'm sickly and I can't function, I can barely climb stairs, then, like I said before, right? What's the point? With that said, where do I start within health? Health in itself is this massively large topic. So, without overwhelming myself, without feeling like I've jumped into the deep end of a pool and there's no way in hell I can swim, where do I start with health? because this is not an area of expertise for me. I mean, I have some basic knowledge of the body and things like that just through years of playing sports and just personal study, reading books and whatnot, but I wouldn't, nowhere near an area of expertise for me. Now, I guess as background, I've tried most diet lifestyle plans, paleo, keto, vegan. That was a bad one. Even calorie reduced, but a balanced diet. I've tried that stuff, and for me, none of them fully worked. There were some that resonated better with me. It was easier for me to do or to stick with. Paleo definitely being one of those was probably the easiest thing for me to do. But again, paleo's a relatively simple thing to do. It's a relatively balanced diet consisting of real food, no processed foods. This garbage that you can buy in the bulk of the grocery store down the center aisles. None of that. Reducing the dairy. Dairy lately, for sure, with me has been having a big impact on my life. Just makes me unbelievably sick, actually. Not just upset stomach like it maybe was in the past. Like, I get sick. So paleo was easier for me, but it still didn't feel fully sustainable. Now, I've tried tracking apps and other softwares and things like that too. And I always found some of those to be, or a lot of those to be, very tedious and laborious and feeling like an obligation again. But I understand the concept of tracking and how important that can be. I mean, it's hard to improve if you don't know where you are physically necessarily. Now, there's aspects that we'll talk about here in a minute too that I don't want to just rely solely off of data. I want to combine data with how I feel and how I look and that kind of a thing. I've tried workout programs as well, like P90X or Dr. Jim Stepani's kind of multiple different workouts there that are very intense. So is P90X for that matter. I mean, or I've tried CrossFit and whatnot too, thinking, okay, maybe exercise is the answer. And every single time it wasn't. Yes, I'd get in better shape, I'd get stronger, things like that. Some of them led to or bordered on injuring myself, CrossFit being one of them. CrossFit's ridiculous, in my opinion. I like the idea of functional fitness, but pushing yourself that hard on a daily basis is the most absurd thing ever, just through experience. And they don't care if you're out of shape or not. They want you pushing to the max all the time. Is the way it seemed. So yeah, I didn't enjoy that very much. P90X was very similar to that too, extremely extreme. Same with Jim Stepani. Yes, you tailor it to your fitness level, the Stepani ones, but at the same time, the whole program is based off of these progressions that, have you, if you're at certain fitness levels like mine and health issues and things like that, they're just too fast, too advanced, and you're going to hurt yourself. So I eventually quit all of these things, and just because they were unsustainable for me. So what next? So basically, for me, I think it's going to start with a plan. And that plan, for me, starts with tracking. Not necessarily software. I'm just using a spreadsheet. In that spreadsheet, I'm going to track my sleep stats, my weight stats, my body fat percentage, my basal metabolic rate, heart rate, blood pressure, and what exercise I tend to do on a weekly basis. And then I'll also journal on a daily basis in conjunction with those stats as to how that day went, in my opinion, how I felt. Was it good for me? Was I feeling lethargic, or was I feeling, full of energy or sore, or what was it, right? So I'll keep track of that, and if I compare those feelings and my thought processes up with those stats, that can tell me, okay, here's where I'm headed. Now, I'll likely take occasionally photos of myself too, to look at progression, to see, okay, yes, my aesthetic look is changing as well. Am I actually thinning down? Am I quote unquote de-bloating? Right? Does my stomach flattening out? Even if I'm not losing weight, is that aesthetic looking different? Because, if I'm working out, I could be putting on muscle and the weight might not change, right? But some of the stats will indicate that as well. But obviously the whole point too is not just to feel better, but to look better, right? So I will journal that. And then I will give my stats in these weekly videos here, which I will do near the end of this video. Now, again, where to start? For me, I think it's going to start with fasting. Now, if you're not familiar with fasting or intermittent fasting, it's the idea of going periods of time without food in order to have your body instigate certain changes within itself and go from there. So that's the most basic kind of definition of it, right? So why start with fasting? Now, the author of the book Obesity Code, Dr. Jason Fung, which is an excellent book, by the way, I highly recommend it. I'll put a link below for that for you guys, and maybe a couple other books that I would recommend in reading as just general knowledge and to get you a base to get started with here. But anyway, Dr. Jason Fung says in that book, or in some of his videos too, he talks about the balanced energy equation. Now, that equation is body fat is equal to calories in minus calories out. Now, the problem with that is that equation misleads us to think that the equation works like the more body fat we have is equal to us taking in more calories than calories out. And that's not necessarily true. It is true, but it's not true. So the equation is fact. Yes, body fat is equal to calories in minus calories out, but sort of. So the better way to look at it is kind of like a fridge. Now, you can go to the grocery store, you can buy food, and you can eat some of that food immediately. But if you bought more food than you need, then you can also store some of that food in the fridge. This makes us think that if we want to, we could go to that fridge anytime we wanted, and if we didn't want to go to the store, we could just go to the fridge, open up that fridge, and take out any of the food we want at any time, and eat that food, right? Now, the problem is the fridge, in reality, has a lock on the door. And that lock is only unlocked under certain circumstances. And so that's like our bodies, right? So our body fat is like the fridge. Okay, so we can take in calories, food energy, and we can burn some of that energy right away through activity or whatever. Okay, but if we're taking in more calories than we're burning off, then we can also store some of that food energy or calories for use at a later date. Okay, so that's that body fat, or that body energy equalization equation. Okay. Now the problem, our body fat has a lock on it as well. So the equation, like the fridge, makes us think that we can go in, and if we're doing excess output at any given time, and we want to be able to use some of that stored energy, it makes us think that at any given time we can go in and access that stored food energy within our body fat and use it. And the problem is that's not true. That can only be accessed under certain circumstances. Sorry, and those circumstances are how high are our insulin and or cortisol levels. These are hormones within our body that ultimately regulate and determine how much body fat we keep up. The more insulin in our body released into our body and bloodstream, the more fat we're going to store. Guaranteed, every single time. So the key is to reduce the insulin level so that lock is unlocked. That way we can, if we do a caloric deficit and we're still burning more, so say our body likes to burn 2,000 calories and we reduce our caloric intake to 1,500, if our insulin is high, our bodies are going to do one of two things. One, it's either going to give us incredible cravings to go access food energy from an external source, so buying it or taking in new food energy for it to use and maintain that 2,000 calorie output, or it's going to reduce our basal metabolic rate, our metabolism. So instead of burning 2,000 calories, it's going to reduce our energy levels and output levels to 1,500, what we're currently intaking. That way, either way, because our body thermostat is set at 1,500, or at 1,500, and now it's been reduced to 2,000 or 1,500, sorry. Then it'll maintain the level of body fat we have in our body. So we haven't lost any weight despite reducing our caloric intake. And this is what gets people with typical diets. Like, oh, I'm eating way less than I used to. I'm eating cleaner than I used to. It doesn't matter because you haven't reduced your insulin levels. You could be eating whole, real food, but if you're eating high glycemic foods like, your white rices, your breads, things like that, or maybe you're eating junk food still, but you're eating less of it, your insulin levels can be high, forcing the body to either reduce its caloric needs or to give you cravings, or it'll force you to give you cravings to go out and take food in elsewhere. So the real question is, how do we reduce insulin? Well, fasting is an excellent way to do that. Fasting, has been proven in study after study after study to reduce that insulin need, reset that body thermostat, and open up that lock on our body fat. That way, now if we're intaking 2,000, or we're outputting 2,000 calories a day of energy, and we reduce our caloric intake to that 1,500 calories. Now that lock is unlocked on our body fat stores, because our insulin is so low, because we're eating foods that are low glycemic, so proteins, good fats, so like animal fats, avocado, that type of stuff, good fats, low glycemic veggies, like so your fibers, veggies, things of that nature. That allows us to access that excess 500 calories from our body fat each day. So our thermostat or our power plant basically is operating at 2,000 calories. We're only bringing in 1,500 calories. It's going to access 500 calories a day in body fat, which is excellent. That's what we want to have happen. So what is my fasting plan? Well, Mondays and Wednesdays for me tend to be the busiest days of the week for me with school and life in general. And so those days for me are going to consist of a 24-hour fast. So starting Sunday evening after dinner, I will only have water, maybe green tea, until dinner time Monday night. So 24 hours of no food. Complete caloric deficit. So that'll be Monday and Wednesday. So Wednesdays would be from Tuesday dinner after dinner till Wednesday at dinner. All the other days, I am going to do approximately a 16-hour fast and then an 8-hour window for eating. So most of my time there would be, usually between 11 and 7 o'clock-ish, with the idea of being done eating by 5 so that I actually enter a fasted state by 7 o'clock. So, keep in mind, this is my plan. I'm experimenting on myself. I am not a health expert, right? Make a plan for yourself. Consult a doctor, talk to experts of how things might benefit you. Don't be afraid to experiment on yourself. It's not the end of the world. As long as you're not going crazy extreme, try things. Try them long enough to see if you're having an effect, but try things. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. Okay? You don't have to be perfect. The goal is to be 1% better every day. So don't put that pressure on yourself to be perfect. If, yes, I'm trying to get healthier, but as I'll explain here in a few minutes, I did not have a perfect week. Made plenty of mistakes. I'm human, right? I'm still trying to break the habits of the old fat guy within me type of thing. And I'm trying to develop the habits of a young, healthy guy. So, it's a process. But don't put too much pressure on yourself. So with that said, here's the stats for me for this week, okay? Last night sleeping, my resting heart rate was 47. My average blood oxygen level, so SpO2, was 94%, with the lowest SpO2 hitting 88%. Average respiration, so that's breaths per minute, it was 14, with my lowest respiration being 8. Okay, so that can indicate, if you combine that with the SpO2, those low points can indicate slight periods of apnea, so the stopping of breathing. And I have been told I have slight sleep apnea. I'm hoping as I progress in my health that will improve. And obviously will give me better health stats as it is. I have noticed as I've been tracking my sleep through my Garmin watch here, I've got the Garmin Epix Gen 3. Again, if you want that, I'll put a link below. Fantastic watch for tracking. It does everything for me. The only thing it doesn't track, which I can input manually, is my weight and body fat and all that type of stuff, which I have a tracker for as well, which is called a Fit Track. I'll have all these links below for you guys. So, but anyway, but yeah, so I track all that through that. And as I've been tracking, I've noticed my health, or my sleep health, is definitely improved. Numbers have gone way up. It's fantastic. Looking a lot better. There was one point when, which actually finished that, my average overnight heart rate variability was 46. So for a person my age, you want it anywhere between probably 42 to 50-ish in there somewhere. So that's actually quite good. There was a point where it had dropped to like 37, which is indicating, I'm not sleeping well. There's something going on. probably stress related. Again, it was right around that time period when I was having, flare-ups and health issues in the hospital, things of that nature. So, yeah. So health is tracking the sleep is going to be important. Sleep is a crucial component to recovery and helping our bodies do what it needs to do on a daily basis. So with my weight, as of this morning, my weight was 280.9 pounds. BMI, which I honestly don't put a whole lot of weight into, it's kind of a stupid number, but anyway, with that said, it was 38.1. My body fat percentage was 39.7%, which is, for me, it's an improvement. I've been as high as that 44% when I was at my max weight of 305. So it's nice to be bringing that down. My basal metabolic rate is 1870. So 1,870 calories is what my body's wanting to burn on a daily basis. As of right now, based on my current activity levels and whatnot. So, and then my visceral fat, now it's kind of a weird number, probably won't make a whole lot of sense, is 21 right now. So it's on a scale, which is quite high. My visceral fat is high, and the visceral fat is the fat in your gut, so in and around your organs. It's the fat you don't really want to be having within you. It's the most dangerous fat. My subcutaneous fat, which is the fat below the skin but on top of the muscles, is 35.6%. So again, still very high. My heart rate for daytime, average heart rate, resting heart rate is 46. And this was for yesterday, I had a high of 126 just through activity. And then my last blood pressure reading, if I remember correctly, was somewhere around 123/84-ish, with a resting heart rate of 64, I think is what it was at that point. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at there for my health. Last week, actually, finish that off. Exercise-wise, really not a whole lot. It was really only Monday. I did 7.5 minutes of rowing, high-intensity rowing, followed by 5.5 minutes of high-intensity calisthenics. Again, I'm still trying to adapt my body to movement since I've had issues with nerve stuff, like my entire right arm and the end of the hand is completely numb, and it's a lot weaker than it used to be. So I do have to be careful that I'm not going to, if I'm, say, for example, doing push-ups or a bench press, it very often feels like my shoulder's going to slip out. I've dislocated my right shoulder multiple times in my life, so don't want to do that. So I do take it easy. I am planning this coming week. Actually, I am starting to go to, rather than just working out at home, I am starting to go to the college gym. So I'm hoping to have slightly longer, more effective workouts at the college gym there. And I'm going to be doing that Monday through Thursday. So I'll keep you posted on how that goes. With that said, I did do a fair bit of walking this week, which was kind of good. Again, most of that's just walking around campus, but walking is walking. I averaged 4,701 steps per day, with the low day being last Sunday of 2,925 steps, and the high day being actually yesterday at 4,992 steps. So, yeah, so with that, some notes on the week. Fasting actually went really well, or fairly well I went, but I did realize really quickly that when it comes to fasting, I need a plan in place as to what food I'm going to eat after I break that fast, because with no plan in place, I noticed right away I ate crap. Which, of course, if you're just going to do a fast and then immediately eat junk food or something like that, or overeat or something along those lines, what's the point of the fast, right? You're just canceling it out in a sense. Now that wasn't every day. That was really only 1, maybe 2 days of the week that was like that. All the other days, it was actually quite effective fasts. It was good. So that was quite nice. Now, throughout the week with the fast, because again, it's been a while since I've actually added in this much fasting, and especially a couple days where it's that long, like 24 hours. I was actually pleasantly surprised that I felt alert and energetic throughout the day, every day. I didn't feel lethargic, other than until maybe approaching bedtime. I like to go to bed around 10ish, and this week I definitely was feeling tired by like 8:30, right? I was getting there. I didn't necessarily go to bed quite then. I was usually in bed by probably 9:30, so, but still, it was, yeah, as the end of the day approached, I got more tired, but throughout the day, I was actually really good with energy and whatnot. So, tips for the week here for you guys. I guess first and foremost, just because I'm focusing on mastering my health first and foremost right now, and eventually wealth and relationships, does not mean that's what you have to do. You know, this whole point here is to talk about mastery and follow me along on my journey. But, you know, find out what you love. What's your passion? Think back to your childhood. What were the things you obsessed on as a kid? And figure out what it is, and put a plan in place and take action immediately on that, on pursuing that passion again, and work towards mastery of it. Again, I can't emphasize it enough. Read the book Mastery by Robert Greene. Such a good book in his outline of what mastery is and how it's achieved in different ways, and how it's not always an overnight thing. You know, it's never an overnight thing, but I mean, it's sometimes, you know, it can be anywhere from a few years to decades and decades to a person's almost entire life before that master level has been achieved. So don't get down on yourself. Don't be super hard on yourself. Just start doing something. You'll feel better about it, especially when it's something you love. It's like the old adage, you know, if you love what you do, you're never going to work a day in your life. And when it comes to mastery, that's crucial. You have to have that in order to continue and push through those hard times of your journey to mastery in that topic. Now, if you're following along with me in fasting, exercising, or just in general trying to be healthier, please let me know in the comments what it is you're doing, what works for you, how you feel. And yeah, maybe, you know, give me some tips. You know, I'm not an expert, like I've said several times here. You know, let me know. You know, did I mess up on something here? Is there something I can be doing better? And I'd love to learn from you guys, right? As much as maybe if you learned from me. So, I think that's all I've got to say about that. So, with that said, I'll see you guys later, and have a great week, okay?